Greetings everyone, welcome to the Sonic Comic Adaption Showcase Spectacular. Yeah, we're doing things a bit different today. What I'm doing in this video, and another one down the line, is showcasing a bunch of Sonic stories, which average about 5 or more pages, and are incomplete. There's a reason for this. These stories are actually advertisements for the then upcoming game. And when it ends, the comic story encourages the reader to pick up the game to see what happens next. Because of the nature of these stories, and there's a lot of them to go through, I'm not going to give it the usual review format that I do with all comic reviews. You know, summarize it, then my comments, and then the final score. In this case, I'll just summarize it, give some brief thoughts, and then move on. Also, except for 2 stories, many of them are not canon to the Archie Sonic continuity. They take place in their own little universe, and usually you can tell when a story is not canon by the caption, "Another time, another place." If I remember correctly, and I could be wrong on this, it was done in this format so that the main continuity would not get interrupted by a sudden game adaptation. Probably something related to what happened with the Sonic Adventure adaptions. Well, fair enough. It would be confusing to tell something from Sonic Unleashed while, say, our heroes are facing evil doppelgangers from another dimension. If you're wondering why I keep flashing the cover of Sonic Selects 9, you can find many of the adaptions I'm about to showcase in this special. If you're curious, I will reveal the original source of the adaptions. Anyway, we have a long journey ahead of us, so let's get started. Sonic Riders, the racing game that has Sonic and company on airboards and introduces the bird trio known as the Babylon Rogues, consisting of Jet the Hawk, Wave the Swallow, and Storm the Albatross. This is actually a 2-part story that was printed in the pages of issues 163 and 164 as backup stories. And since I want to focus more on the main stories when I get to them, might as well put it here. Oddly enough, this story does not appear in Sonic Select 9. Perhaps it was supposed to be part of another graphic novel set that sadly wasn't printed. Before we begin, I should point out that this is one of the 2 in-canon stories that I mentioned earlier. Anyway, the story starts with Jet the Hawk speeding away from egg ponds with Eggman's vapor accelerator in hand, until he runs into an egg hammer and is captured. Eggman is amazed at Jet's airboard, which allows the Hawk to go as fast as Sonic. Jet has never heard of Sonic, but wants to prove he's the fastest around, so a deal is worked out. Eggman will not kill Jet if he roughs up Sonic. Jet agrees if he's allowed to bring in some friends. We then see Sonic running through the Great Forest until he's ambushed by Jet and his 2 friends, Wave and Storm. Sonic's not impressed with the Babylon Rogues' airboards, even after Jet threatens to attack Knothole. Sonic soon changes his tune as Storm and Wave show off their strength and skill respectively before Jet zooms past Sonic. With Sonic on the ground, the trio properly introduce themselves. And I guess let Sonic go because part 2 of the story starts with Sonic entering Freedom HQ a little worse for wear. He explains to Tails and Knuckles about the Babylon Rogues and their speedy airboards. This prompts Tails to break out something to even the odds: their own airboards. He's been working on them so they can keep up with Sonic on missions. And he's made one for Sonic himself. A bit flimsy and contrived, I admit, but we need to promote the game. The Babylon Rogues are heading towards Knothole when they're intercepted by Team Sonic. Jet now wants to attack Knothole on principle, but only if they can beat Team Sonic. So they zoom around the Great Forest, Knuckles and Storm testing each other's strength, and Tails and Wave go at it. But the race has only begun just as the story is ending, with the caption below saying, "Play Sonic Riders to find out what happened." Only the plot of the game and the plot of this story have nothing to do with each other. As I said earlier, this story is canon because Knothole is mentioned, and Jet brings up the Armada, which we'll learn is the Battlebird Armada or Grand Cuckoo Army that debuted in the Tails Adventure arc. In fact, the events of this story will be mentioned in that story arc. We're going to assume Sonic and company forced the Rogues to leave off-panel. I'm sure people have asked this kind of question before. Why would Sonic use an airboard when he can run that fast naturally? Within the context of this story, I have 3 reasons, in my opinion of course. 1. When he first encountered the Babylon Rogues, he was outnumbered. 2. He wanted to beat Jet at his own game. And finally, it's an advertisement for the video game. Rest assured, this will not be the last time we will see the Babylon Rogues. The art is impressive given that it's the early days of Tracy's tenure on the book, though the outline is a bit thick. There is one more adaptation that is considered to be canon to the Archie Sonic continuity, so let's get straight to it. Sonic Rush Adventure, the sequel to Sonic Rush that has Sonic and Tails thrown into Blaze's world and have them team up with her and Marine the Raccoon to stop robot pirates and their masters. This adaptation originally appeared in the backup story of issue 180, the prelude to the Enerjack Reborn arc, and it begins the trend of 5-page story advertisements in the comics at the time. Anyway, we start with Sonic and Tails recovering on a beach after a crash. As they try to get their bearings, someone who's not qualified to be a doctor shows up, Marine the Raccoon. She tries to draft Sonic and Tails to join her on an adventure. Sonic surprisingly doesn't jump on board with this idea. That is until Marine brings up pirates. She goes on to explain that a group of pirates came to Seagull Island, the island they're on by the way, in search of treasure. Said treasure, which Marine found by the way, is a Chaos Emerald. Before Sonic and Tails can comprehend this, the emerald is stolen by one of the pirates, Johnny, whose speed even impresses Sonic. The three go off to confront Johnny, and here's where things get interesting. In the original issue 180 print, there's the old buy the game caption here, but in the Sonic Select 9 print, there is one more page, which is actually a modified version of the recap from Sonic Universe issue 1 as a way to complete the story. Yeah. There are so many questions you can ask, like, how did Sonic and Tails, and more importantly, the Chaos Emerald ended up on Blaze's world? Best guess? The Will of the Jeweled Scepter, the iconic item from Sonic Rush Adventure, because it has powers related to parallel universes and knows it needs help. Best I got, some of you may point out, don't think about it too much, it's to promote Sonic Rush Adventure. True, but as I hinted at earlier, this story is canon. Sonic lets Blaze keep the emerald so she can use it to find the Soul Emeralds, and later Blaze hands it over to Shadow so he can Chaos Control home. And Captain Whisker is brought up in the same issue Shadow meets Blaze. Thankfully, this is the last story that has a proper connection to the main continuity. However, this is not the last time Sonic travels to another world. Sonic and the Secret Rings, the first of the Sonic storybook series released for the Wii. Its comic adaptation had a very interesting history. Originally, it came out as a Target exclusive comic DVD that came with the game. Yeah, if you were a comic fan and didn't get the game at Target, you were kind of out of luck, unless you were trying to hunt it down on eBay. Luckily, the story was reprinted in Sonic Select 9, and that's the version I'll be looking at here. The game's story involves Sonic getting transported into the world of the Arabian Nights to save it and his world from the wrath of the Erasure Djinn. And we see him running alongside Shara, Genie of the Ring. Her ring appeared to Sonic one evening, and the moment he put it on, Sonic became her master. And she was the one that transported him into the book in the first place. Sonic, being the guy he is not comfortable with being called master and wants her to call him Sonic and be his friend. Shara questions how Sonic knows a number of characters in the stories like Alibaba and Sinbad. This illustrates something the storybook games like to do: have the story characters resemble someone from Sonic's world. In this case, Alibaba resembles Tails and Sinbad resembles Knuckles. Sonic explains to Shara about the former being like a brother to him, and the latter being a stubborn guardian of Angel Island. There is also King Shahryar, who resembles Dr. Eggman. Sonic explains the Doctor's MO and how he's not as nasty as Erasure Djinn? Really? Well, at this point, Eggman hasn't captured alien creatures or screwed around with the space-time continuum. Sonic name drops a few individuals that were jerks to him, as well as his friends, while confronting a slime djinn. All of them game characters, for the record. This leads to Shara saying outside of her masters, she doesn't have friends, companions, or even enemies that she's passionate about. There is something between her and the Erasure Djinn that, if you're familiar with the game, will show up during the final confrontation. Sonic's already looking past said confrontation and wants to have adventures with Shara, until Shara points out why Sonic has a flame on his chest. Near the beginning of the game's story, Sonic took the shot meant for Shara and now he's cursed. Sonic did it because, as he said, they're friends, and as friends, they will track down the 7 world rings to save the Arabian Nights while having some fun. The story ends with them staring at Captain Beamoff's ship, ready to take that world ring. If it isn't pretty obvious by now, the setting takes place in Pirate Storm with Sonic and Shara trying to get the one world ring that can help them fight the fire monster Ifrit before it burns down the Arabian Nights. Whatever you may think about the on-rails gameplay or the overall story, I would say one of the good things about the game is the interaction between Sonic and Shara, how the Hedgehog sees her as a person and a friend, and getting her to open up. Perhaps it's just me, but after years of fighting a mad scientist who enslaves critters, Sonic would find being a master to someone a bit off-putting. Otherwise, this story is a taste to what new players are getting into story-wise, complete with the Sonic characters are playing someone else gimmick. Speaking of Sonic supporting cast, Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood, the Hedgehog's so far only RPG that features him and his friends tackling the titular Dark Brotherhood, the Nocturnus clan, aka the Marauders. This short adaptation is the backup story of issue 191, which happened during the King Scourge arc, and it won't be the only one. The story takes place before Sonic gets the call from Tails about Knuckles' kidnapping. In fact, it's about how Knuckles got kidnapped in the first place. Tails and Knuckles have gotten word of thieves stealing Chaos Emeralds. They set a trap for the thieves using the last Chaos Emerald and parts from the tornado. Knuckles wants to teach them a lesson for the record. Soon the thieves, aka the Marauders, appear and they're trapped for less than a second. Knuckles attacks them and he seems to be holding his own despite more Marauders appearing, until this differently designed one shows up. Yeah, I'll go ahead and identify her as Shade. She warns him not to fight or else, but Knuckles, being who he is, doesn't listen and pays the price. Emerald in hand, Shade orders the Marauders to bring Knuckles and they disappear. We end with Tails planning to call Sonic, Amy, Gun, and anyone else who can help with the situation. Elements of Sonic Chronicles would appear in the comic continuity proper, in small ways. The Nocturnus clan doesn't appear in the comics proper, but thanks to the Sonic Comic Encyclopedia and other supplementary materials, they are considered canon. Their backstory is similar to that of the games. Banished to the Twilight Cage, conquered the various aliens within, and so forth. One thing to note is the Twilight Cage is also called the Twilight Zone, and is the same place the Dark Legion were banished to. The Dark Legion were inferior knockoffs and weren't worth conquering. Ironic, considering the Dark Legion was the real-life inspiration for the Dark Brotherhood. The Dark Legion escaped thanks to stealing the Marauders' technology. The Marauders themselves would remain in the Twilight Cage for the remainder of the book's run. Well then, we haven't seen Sonic or Eggman in a while. Sonic Unleashed, the 3D game after the infamous Sonic 06 that was a stepping stone to putting the Hedgehog back on track, mainly thanks to the introduction of the boost formula to consoles. I repeat, to consoles. It does have that one gimmick people are divided on, the Werehog. We'll see it here, only because this adaptation is a retelling of the opening cutscene of the game. Before we begin, the backup story first appeared in issue 193, also taking place during the King Scourge arc. We begin with Super Sonic on Eggman's space station after tearing through Eggman's forces. Tracy's good, but I doubt even he could replicate the awesome opening battle. However, Eggman's defeat was all part of the plan. He traps Super Sonic and rips out the Chaos Emeralds, turning Sonic back to normal. Using the Emerald's power, he shatters the world. Off panel. We are dealing with only 5 pages, so we need to prioritize. At least it skips that long, meme-worthy scene of Sonic's first transformation into the Werehog. Eggman knows this is something he doesn't want to mess with, and ejects the Werehog and the drained emeralds. They land safe and sound on the planet below because reasons, and the sunlight transforms Sonic back to normal. We end with Sonic ready to get down to business. Noticeably absent is a certain small creature that he lands on in the game. Sonic Unleashed would be adapted into the comics proper, after it was rebooted. In fact, it was because Eggman messed with the space-time continuum that the planet split in the first place. Many of the familiar elements would be present. The Werehog, Chip, Professor Pickle, Eggman Land, Dark Gaia, and the Gaia Colossus Megazord. The majority of the reboot era would consist of the Unleashed arc, and thankfully, it was completed before the Archie Sonic comics themselves met with an untimely end. Wow, Marina's full of herself. Don't worry, down the line she'll meet someone who doesn't put up with her obnoxious behavior.